Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We are reading from the Lila Chapter 4. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Verse 135. If sometime I can be the abode of that love, only then may I taste its joy. Purport, Visha and Ashraya are two very significant words relating to the reciprocation between Krishna and his devotee. The devotee is called the Ashraya and his beloved Krishna is the Vishay. Different ingredients are involved in the exchange of love between the Ashraya and Vishay, which are known as Vibhav, Anubhav, Satvik and Vyabhichari. Vibhav is divided into the categories Alambana and Udipana. Alambana may be further divided into Ashraya and Vishay. In the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna, Radharani is the Ashraya feature and Krishna is the Vishay. The transcendental consciousness of the Lord tells him, I am Krishna and I experience pleasure as the Vishay. The pleasure enjoyed by Radharani, the Ashraya, is many times greater than the pleasure I feel. Therefore, to feel the pleasure of the Ashraya category, Lord Krishna appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Verse 136. Thinking in this way, Lord Krishna was curious to taste that love. His eager desire for that love increasingly blazed in his heart. Verse 137. That is one desire, now please hear of another. Seeing his own beauty, Krishna began to consider. Verse 138. My sweetness is wonderful, infinite and full. No one in the three worlds can find its limit. Verse 139. Only Radhika by the strength of her love tastes all the nectar of my sweetness. Verse 140. Although Radha's love is pure like a mirror, its purity increases at every moment. Verse 141. My sweetness also has no room for expansion, yet it shines before the mirror in newer and newer beauty. Verse 142. There is constant competition between my sweetness and the mirror of Radha's love. They both go on increasing, but neither knows defeat. Verse 143. My sweetness is always newer and newer. Devotees taste it according to their own respective love. Verse 144. If I see my sweetness in a mirror, I am tempted to taste it, but nevertheless I cannot. Verse 145. If I deliberate on a way to taste it, I find that I hanker for the position of Radhika. Purport, Krishna's attractiveness is wonderful and unlimited. No one can know the end of it. Srimati Radharani alone can relish such extensiveness from her position in the Ashraya category. The mirror of Srimati Radharani's transcendental love is perfectly clear, yet it appears clearer and clearest in the transcendental method of understanding Krishna. In the mirror of Radharani's heart, the transcendental feature of Krishna appear increasingly new and fresh. In other words, the attraction of Krishna increases in proportion to the understanding of Srimati Radharani. Each tries to supersede the other. Neither wants to be defeated in increasing the intensity of love. Desiring to understand Radharani's attitude of increasing love, Lord Krishna appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Verse 146. Who manifests an abundance of sweetness greater than mine, which has never been experienced before, and which causes wonder to all. Alas, I myself, my mind bewildered upon seeing this beauty, impetuously desired to enjoy it like Srimati Radharani. Purport, this text is from the Lalita Madhav 8.34 of Srila Rupa Goswami. It was spoken by Lord Krishna when he saw the beauty of his own reflection in a jeweled fountain in Dwarka. Verse 147. The beauty of Krishna has one natural strength. It thrills the hearts of all men and women, beginning with Lord Krishna himself. Verse 148. All minds are attracted by hearing his sweet voice and flute or by seeing his beauty. Even Lord Krishna himself makes efforts to taste that sweetness. Verse 149. The thirst of one who always drinks the nectar of that sweetness is never satisfied. Rather, that thirst increases constantly. Verse 150. Such a person, being unsatisfied, begins to blaspheme Lord Brahma, saying that he does not know the art of creating well and is simply inexperienced. Verse 151. He has not given millions of eyes to see the beauty of Krishna. He has given only 2 eyes, and even those eyes blink. How then shall I see the lovely face of Krishna? Verse 152. The gopis said, O Krishna, when you go to the forest during the day and we do not see your sweet face, which is surrounded by beautiful curling hair, half a second becomes as long as an entire age for us, and we consider the Creator who has put eyelids on the eyes we use for seeing you to be simply a fool. Purport. This verse is spoken by the gopis in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, verse 31, 15th verse. It goes like this. Atati yad bhavan ahani kananam trutir yugayate tvam apashyatam kutila kuntalam shri mukham chate jada udikshatam pakshmakrid drisham. Verse 153. The gopis saw their beloved Krishna at Kurukshetra after long separation. They secured and embraced him in their hearts through their eyes, and they attained a joy so intense that not even perfect yogis can attain it. The gopis cursed the Creator for creating eyelids that interfered with their vision. Purport. This text is also from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 82nd chapter, 39 verse. Verse 154. There is no consummation for the eyes other than the sight of Krishna. Whoever sees him is most fortunate indeed. Verse 155. The gopis said, O friends, those eyes that see the beautiful faces of the sons of Maharaj Nand are certainly fortunate, as these 2 sons enter the forest surrounded by their friends, driving the cows before them. They hold their flutes to their mouths and glance lovingly upon the residents of Vrindavan. For those who have eyes, we think there is no greater object of vision. Purport. Like the gopis, one can see Krishna continuously if one is fortunate enough. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that sages whose eyes have been smeared with the ointment of pure love can see the form of Shyam Sundar, which is Krishna, continuously in the centers of their heart. This text is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.21.7, was sung by the gopis on the advent of the Sharat season. Verse 156. The women of Mathura said, What austerities must the gopis have performed with their eyes? They always drink the nectar of the form of the Lord Krishna, which is the essence of loveliness and is not to be equaled or surpassed. That loveliness is the only abode of beauty, fame and opulence. It is self-perfect, ever fresh and extremely rare. This text is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.44.14. It was spoken by the women of Mathura when they saw Krishna and Balram in the arena with King Kamsa's great wrestlers, Mushtik and Chanur. Verse 157. The sweetness of Lord Krishna is unprecedented, and its strength is also unprecedented. Simply by one's hearing of such beauty, the mind becomes unsteady. Verse 158. Lord Krishna's own beauty attracts Lord Krishna himself, but because he cannot fully enjoy it, his mind remains full of sorrow. Verse 159. This is a description of his second desire. Now please listen as I describe the third. Verse 160. This conclusion of rasa is extremely deep. Only Swarup Damodar knows much about it. Verse 161. Anyone else who claims to know it must have heard it from him, for he was the most intimate companion of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Verse 162. The love of the gopis is called Rudha Bhav. It is pure and spotless. It is not at any time lust. As explained earlier, this is the purport. The position of the gopis in their loving dealings with Krishna is transcendental. Their emotion is called Rudha Bhav, although it is apparently like a mundane sex, but should not confuse it with the mundane sexual love, for it is pure and unadulterated love of Godhead. Verse 163. The pure love of the gopis has become celebrated by the name lust. The dear devotees of the Lord, headed by Sri Uddhav, desire to taste that love. Purport. This is a verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.285. Verse 164. Lust and love have different characteristics, just as iron and gold have got different natures. Purport. One should try to discriminate between sexual love and pure love, for they belong to different categories. With a gulf of difference between them, they are as different from one another as iron is from gold. Verse 165. The desire to gratify one's own senses is kama or lust, but the desire to please the senses of Lord is prema or love. Purport. The revealed scriptures describe pure love as sarvatha dvamsa rahitam sati api dvamsa karane yad bhava bandhanam yono sa prema parikirtitih. If there is ample reason for the dissolution of a conjugal relationship, and yet such dissolution does not take place, such a relationship of intimate love is called pure. The predominated gopis were bound to Krishna in such pure love. For them there was no question of sexual love based on their sense gratification. Their only engagement in life was to see Krishna happy in all respects. Regardless of their own personal interests, they dedicated their souls only for the satisfaction of their personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. There was not the slightest tinge of sexual love between the gopis and Krishna. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita asserts with authority that sexual love is a matter of personal sense enjoyment. All the regulative principles in the Vedas pertaining to desires for popularity, fatherhood, wealth, and so on are different phases of sense gratification. Act of sense gratification may be performed under the cover of public welfare, nationalism, religion, altruism, ethical codes, biblical codes, health directives, fruitive action, bashfulness, tolerance, personal comfort, liberation from material bondage, progress, family affection, or fear of social ostracism or legal punishment. But all these categories are different subdivisions of one substance, which is sense gratification. All such good acts are performed basically for one's own sense gratification, for no one can sacrifice his personal interest while discharging these much advertised moral and religious principles. But above all, this is a transcendental stage in which one feels himself to be only an eternal servitor of Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead. All acts performed in such sense of servitude are called pure love of Godhead, because they are performed for the absolute sense gratification of Sri Krishna. However, any act performed for the purpose of enjoying its fruit or result is an act of sense gratification. Such actions are visible sometimes in gross and sometimes in subtle forms. Verse 166. The object of love is the only enjoyment of one's own senses, but love caters to the enjoyment of Lord Krishna, and thus it is very powerful. Verse 167 to 69. Social customs, scriptural injunctions, bodily demands, fruitive action, shyness, patience, bodily pleasures, self-gratification on the path of varnashram dharma, which is difficult to give up. The gopis have forsaken all these as well as their own relatives and their punishment and scolding for the sake of serving Lord Krishna. They render loving service to him for the sake of his enjoyment. So we'll continue from here onwards next time. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat.